Alright, I wanted to make another kind of like rambling video, kind of like my goatee first impressions video, or fish as people keep correcting me, it's pronounced fish. But this time I want to talk about a deck that I don't really see talked about very much, which is surprising for an anime deck, but it is Galaxy Eyes. Now this deck has gotten little trickles of support over the past couple years. They had a legendary duelist, they had Photon Lord came out in Battles of a Legend, and then recently we had a legendary duelist like the Season 1 that had the Afterglow. So they've gotten little trickles of support here and there. But if you are a Galaxy Eyes player, there are some very clear problems with the deck that I'm hoping will be fixed in the next core set after Darkwing Blast called Photon Hypernova. Now, we don't know anything about the set other than the name, but if Konami makes a set called Photon Hypernova and doesn't include a single Galaxy Eyes or Photon card, that'll be the biggest troll of the century. But let's just assume for a second that, the set called Darkwing Blast had black wings in it. I think it's pretty safe to assume that Photon Hypernova is going to have Galaxy Photon cards in it. Here is a list of all of the playable cards in the entire archetype. And there's only 16 of them that I would consider playable. Now, some of these you play 3, some of these you play 1, some of these you could even play 0 if you want, like cards like Transmigration and Galaxy 0. A lot of lists don't even play these at all. Out of all of the Photon Galaxy cards, the number of cards that are actually playable is pretty limited. Even in the extra deck, these are all of the extra deck ones that I would consider playable and that I do play actually in real life. They only have one link, a bunch of Xyz, which is to be expected. It's an Xyz deck from Zexal. And they have a whole bunch of monsters and one counter trap that isn't searchable. Even though tons of other archetypes these days have searchable counter traps, but back when galaxies were relevant in like mainstream media in the anime, searchable counter traps weren't really a thing until like some of the pendulum era decks. Now, out of all of these 16 cards, I have divided them down into 4 categories. Starter, Extender, Searcher, and Garnets. And we're gonna go take a look at those right now. So here's a little list breaking down the 16 cards. You'll notice that there are 3 starters, 10 extenders, 5 searchers, and 6 potential garnets. And let's just talk about these one by one. The weakest point of the entire deck, and people agree with me on this, is that the deck has no clear starter. And even then, out of these 3, Photon Thrasher. It's a free special if you control no monsters. Photon Vanisher. You can special it only if you control a Photon monster or Photon or Galaxy monster, I believe. And Excel Light lets you summon a level 4 or lower Photon or Galaxy from your deck, but you cannot normal summon the turn you use it. So you'll notice that these 3 starters all have a pretty big downside. Thrasher, you can't summon if you already have a monster. Vanisher requires you to have a monster in the first place to even summon it because you can't normal summon it. which means it's not technically a starter, and Accelerate locks you out from normal summoning. Even though you get to special from deck, which is pretty strong, the normal summon is pretty important for this deck with cards like Galaxy Knight, and even Galaxy Wizard comes up every now and then. But if you compare these starters to starters in other decks, such as Aluber, Girsu, E-Telly, right? These are all modern starters, and there's 3 flavors of starter. The one is that when it's summoned, it adds an archetypal card from your deck to your hand. The second type is one that sends an archetypal card from deck to grave. And the last one, which is really common in recent archetypes, is just being able to summon straight from deck, right? Like Splight Starter, E-Telly, Quick Launch. And you compare those cards to a card like Accelerate, and there's just no contest that Accelerate is just horrible compared to any of those. So looking at these starters, the only one that actually gives you some kind of advantage is Vanisher. But even then, Vanisher, when you use its effect to add, you only get a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, which can't summon itself. I even have it down here in the potential garnets, because you need a way to summon it out that isn't by its own effect. Because if you just summon Galaxy Eyes with its own effect, you're just going -1 and you're just negging really hard. So you're searching a card that you can't summon unless you have other cards to summon it. Compared to other decks like, say Splight, which you normal summon blue, you search an extender, and your extender searches another extender. And speaking of extenders, we have 10 of them here. Now these are all cards that can special summon themselves or like special summon other cards. Vanisher we've already talked about. Galaxy, what is that? Why can't I fucking remember this card name? Galaxy Soldier is, you could also put Galaxy Soldier in starter, but a starter that like minuses you 2 cards is probably not the best. Well, it minuses you 1 card technically, maybe. So Galaxy Soldier, the problem with him, yes, you can discard a card to special it, which other decks have, akin to like Foxy Toon, and it does search a Galaxy card on summon, but the problem is that it's level 5. And if you haven't noticed, not a single other card in this deck is level 5 except for Galaxy Soldier, which means you have to go Galaxy Soldier, discard a card, search another Galaxy Soldier, discard another card to summon the second Galaxy Soldier, and you can make something like a Cyber Dragon Infinity. But now you're down to what, like 3 cards in hand going first? And within a deck like this, where you barely ever plus off of any effect, going down to 3 cards is very tricky, and often will just kind of make it so your board is very weak. Galaxy Eyes Afterglow Dragon, the third one here. This one is a step in the right direction, because it is not only an extender that can summon itself, if you detach it from an Xyz monster, which you can do on your own turn, you can summon another Galaxy-Eyes Photon Dragon from your deck. So it essentially turns into 2 level 8 bodies, if you can stick it to the field. The problem is, you have to control a Galaxy-Eyes monster, I believe. So only if you control Photon Dragon or some of the Xyz monsters can you even summon it in the first place. Galaxy Knight, when you normal summon it, you get to bring back a Galaxy-Eyes Photon Dragon specifically from your grave to your field. So yet again, it's another like 1 card, 2 level 8s, but it requires your normal summon. And the deck doesn't have that many normal summons, but it does rely heavily on the normal summon, which means a card like Excel Light is holding you back from getting a free rank 8 off of Galaxy Knight, which you can search. Galaxy Brave, you can summon it from hand by revealing another Photon monster in your hand. And it will summon out and copy the level of the monster you revealed. But it has to be a Photon monster, it can't be a Galaxy monster. So if you're stuck with like a Galaxy Wizard, or a Galaxy Soldier, or a Galaxy Knight, if those are the only other monsters in your hand, well then Galaxy Brave he ain't doing shit, that's all I'm saying. Photon Advancer is the only level 4 in the deck that can both be normaled and specialed. So Advancer is cool. I don't think his summon effect is... I think his special summon is once per turn. But just having more cards that can just be normaled or specialed would be really nice. Photon Sanctuary summons 2 tokens. This can be used pretty much only to make the Link 2. That's all you ever use it for. Galaxy Expedition, you can basically summon out a level 5 or level 8 from your deck, depending on if you control a level 5 or level 8. Galaxy Zero is like a premature burial for the deck. And Galaxy Trance can let you summon out... I believe you copy a Photon in your grave and then summon a Galaxy from your deck. Which is really nice. Like that's a +1, because you're summoning 1 from grave, 1 from deck off of just 1 card. And you can make a rank 8 for free, almost. But the turn that you use Galaxy Trance, you can't summon monsters other than Photon or Galaxy monsters. Which means if you make something like a Felgrand to trigger your Afterglow, you now can no longer use Galaxy Trance. So again, even more restrictions. And in terms of searchers, I think we've been over all of these except Orbital. Orbital is a really good searcher, because it can search any Photon or Galaxy monster. The problem is that you have to control a Photon or Galaxy monster just to be able to use its effect to search to begin with. And like I said, compared to cards like Aluber or even Stratos, like that kind of summon and search effect, right? You're going +1 off of that kind of card. Whereas Photon Orbital, you have to send it to grave to add a card. So you're just zeroing, you're not plussing. Galaxy Wizard, again, you have to tribute it to add a card. So you're not plussing, you're just zeroing, and you've wasted your normal summon. So you can see how things can be very clunky, right? You don't want to use your normal summon on anything other than Galaxy Knight. But sometimes you have to normal summon just some random thing to be able to use your searchers in the first place, like Vanisher and Orbital. So, if you don't open exactly Thrasher as your first monster, you're forced to use your normal summon on something other than Knight. And that just feels really bad because you're not gaining any advantage at all. You're summoning some useless monster, you're equipping the orbital, searching a monster that can't be something that you can normal summon because you already normaled, and Vanisher searches a card that can't be used unless you have something else that can summon the card you search. And of course, these 6 garnets down at the bottom. Photon Lord, please don't ever summon this thing with its own effect unless you really need to. The fact that this card relies on other cards to summon it out makes it really clunky, and you really do need to play like 2 or 3 of it just for your main combo lines, so this thing bricks hard. Transmigration is a really cool counter trap. It's a very unique counter trap. It can negate every card activated previously in the entire chain. So if your opponent does some shenanigans with Tier Element where they do like Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, Chainlink 3 after milling 8 cards, you can negate all of those, all 3 of those effects, which is really nice. The problem is you have to control like a Galaxy Eyes monster, and it's not searchable. So there's 2 heavy drawbacks. And in a day and age where every deck has like a searchable counter trap, it feels like, this card just feels really bad to play, and almost nobody really plays it if they're trying to compete at a high level. Photon Thrasher technically is a garnet because you can only summon him if you control no monsters. So if you draw 2 Thrashers, well, the other Thrasher is just dead in your hand. Galaxy Knight is another garnet because he has to be normal summoned, and if you have to normal summon something stupid like an orbital or a wizard just to start your plays, then the wizard is also dead in your hand. And then Trance and Excellite are also potential garnets because Trance, you can't summon anything other than Galaxy or Photons, and Excellite, if you normal summoned previously this turn, you can no longer activate Excellite, so you're just out of luck. So I think you can see based off of this chart that the deck has plenty of extenders and plenty of searchers. The problem is that none of them actually give you any advantage. If you play this deck, you'll notice a lot that going through your first turn combo line, you use pretty much your entire hand to do that. So you have 0 follow-up if your board gets broken. And in terms of the starters, they don't do anything on their own, right? Like you always have to have some kind of 2 or 3 card combo just to be able to play the game. Whereas cards like Sprite Blue is full combo, just off of the 1 summon. Cards like Aluber gets you to your fusion line, which is, you know, pretty much your whole combo. Girsu, you mill an Orchist, full combo. E-Telly, summon a Xiamen, full combo. Thrasher, Vanisher, and Excellite, they don't do any of those things. And these are cards that you have to start with if you want to play. Like, you really can't make a play unless you draw some of these like free level 4 summons. And the only searcher in the deck being a card like Orbital instead of something like just some you know, some card like Branded Opening or Signet Mining, Reinforcement of the Army. This deck really needs something like that, because without your Thrasher and without your Vanisher, You have to go through some really awkward lines, and sometimes you're just not even making boards that have more than 1 or 2 negates, and that's it. You spend your entire hand making a board with 1 or 2 negates. Sometimes you can make 3 if you get the God hand, but in a deck that has searchers that are very reliant on other cards to even be searchers in the first place, that doesn't happen very often. So the deck desperately needs a starter, like really bad. Any kind of card that can just get you into some kind of linear play. Like if you normal summon Girsu, you have one line that you know you can go for. Aluber, you have a line with your fusion that you know you can go for. And with E-Telly, you know, you do the full punk combo. And there is a little bit of variance with the Chaos Ruler, but you're still going off really hard. Like E-Telly can make a 1-card Photon Lord, but not a single card in the Photon deck is a 1-card Photon Lord. I think that is a huge problem. So the deck really needs like a normal summonable starter that just pluses you in any way. Like just search a Photon monster, search a Galaxy Speller Trap. Just something that you can summon and actually give you advantage that lets you play the game. Because cards like Thrasher, Vanisher, and Excellite, they do nothing on their own. And we have learned that Konami they do care about this deck, because Photon Lord and Afterglow are like the 2 most recent support cards, I think. And these cards just completely changed the way that we play the deck. Afterglow is an OTK machine that can help you play through multiple disruptions and still OTK. Whereas Photon Lord is like honestly one of the best like turn 1 boss monsters out of like all the decks. Like it has destruction protection, it has a monster negate, and it can even search a Photon or Galaxy card during your opponent's turn. So this card is essentially the game plan, right? Photon Lord is your going first game plan. Afterglow is your going second game plan. Is there any clear way to get to these? No. There is no clear path. There's no linear path that you can take to get to your 2 game plans unless you open some kind of really godly hand where all of the cards don't interfere with each other, which is just really sad. So the bottom line is that photons in Photon Hypernova, I really want to see a 1-card starter. Because in this day and age, having a non-linear strategy without a clear 1-card starter, the variance is not good for competitive play. Like if you go to a really long event like a 10-round regional or something, or a YCS, not having a clear game plan and a clear line of play, you're going to run into a lot of variance over the course of like 10 matches. And you're not going to be able to do what you want to do all the time, compared to a lot of even rogue tier decks these days. Like even rogue decks that are just kind of a little bit below the meta, they have clear game plans and they have the consistency, like Marincess. Marincess, we all know what they do. They have a clear game plan, they have multiple 1-card starters, they have multiple searchers, and even with all of that, they can't break above that rogue tier. So what we really need is just a 1-card starter to help us get to our game plan, And Konami, please don't fuck this up.